All right, welcome back. Today, we are tracking the absolutely wild, super fast evolution of a Google Labs experiment. Seriously, this thing went from being a fun little digital sketchpad to a potential presentation powerhouse in what feels like the blink of an eye. So yeah, let's get right into the story of Mixboard.
You know how it is? Every single great idea. Doesn't matter if it's for a new company, a marketing campaign, whatever. It always starts in the same place. Pure, beautiful chaos. It's this messy, amazing jumble of thoughts, arrows, and scraps of inspiration. It's just raw potential.
But you can't present chaos, right? All that amazing raw energy has to somehow get translated into something structured, polished, and, well, professional. And that journey, from the messy whiteboard to the clean slide, that's where all the time gets wasted. That's where the frustration happens. And that's exactly the gap that AI is racing to fill.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about that universal creative challenge. Then, we'll look at where Mixboard started as a simple AI sketchpad. After that, we'll track its super fast power-up, and then we get to the main event, how it can turn those messy ideas directly into a presentation. And finally, we'll see where it stacks up against the competition and ask the big question, what does this mean for the future of creativity?
Okay, so let's set the stage here. We're really talking about that one friction point that pretty much every creative person, every strategist, every planner has to deal with. How in the world do you take this tornado of ideas in your head and wrangle it into a story that actually makes sense?
And this quote, man, it just perfectly sums up the problem. This isn't just some small annoyance. For a lot of people, it is a huge bottleneck in their workflow. It's exactly this pain point that Google is trying to solve with what they've done to Mixboard.
All right, let's hop in the time machine and go back to September 2025. This is when Mixboard first popped up as a Google Labs experiment. And back then, it wasn't trying to be this big professional production tool. No, its ambitions were, well, a lot more playful. So the key thing to get is that Mixboard started its life as basically a mood board on steroids. It was powered by the standard Nano image model, which is just Google's internal name for its Gemini image tech, and it was really all about just throwing ideas onto a digital canvas.
Now let's talk about the limitations, because this is where it gets really telling. Yeah, you could generate images and tweak them with simple text prompts, but it was only available in the US. It had this weird but important rule where it wouldn't create variations of people if it saw a face, and this is the big one, it was a totally walled garden. You couldn't get your stuff out and into PowerPoint or Figma, it was an island.
But that little island of ideas, that was just chapter 1. Because in the last quarter of 2025, everything changed. Google just started hammering out these aggressive upgrades that took Mixboard from a fun toy to a tool with some serious professional chops. I mean, just look at this timeline. It is incredibly fast. In just a couple of months, Mixboard goes global, it quadruples the size of its workspace, and it gets a massive engine upgrade. Every one of these steps was clearly paving the way for what they had planned next, the ability to actually create presentations. And this right here, this was the quantum leap. Swapping in Nano Banana Pro wasn't just about making slightly prettier pictures. Now, we're talking about going from fun little sketches to studio-quality, 4K-ready visuals. And crucially, it solved the consistency problem. You could finally keep a character or a brand style looking the same across multiple images, which, as you know, is an absolute must-have for any real presentation.
Which brings us to the climax of the whole story. All those upgrades we just talked about, the bigger canvas, the pro-level engine, it was all leading to this one single game-changing update.
December 8th, 2025. That was the day. Google officially announced it. You could now create presentations with Nano Banana Pro right inside Mixboard. This was the moment the tool went from being just a place for ideas to a place where you could actually produce something.
So, how does it work? It's actually beautifully simple. Just 3 steps. First, you use the AI to generate all your pictures, your logos, whatever visuals you need. Then, and this part is manual, you arrange them into these logical zones on that big canvas, kind of like your storyboarding. And finally, you just hit a presentation mode button, and bam, Mixboard turns those zones into a real, clickable slide-by-slide deck.
And the final product is legit professional grade. We're talking 4K resolution, so it looks sharp on big screens. It even supports that wide 21:9 cinematic aspect ratio. And it keeps your branding consistent across all the slides. Plus, and this is a huge time saver, the AI can even suggest headlines and text based on the images you've arranged. Pretty cool. Now, of course, a move like this doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? This pushes Mixboard straight into a very crowded and very competitive arena with some of the biggest names in the visual collaboration world.
This chart really lays out the big trade-off. Mixboard's AI for generating images is absolutely top of its class. Thanks to Nano Banana Pro, it blows past what tools like Miro or Figma can do with their add-on plugins. But, and it's a big but, its major weakness is how it integrates with everything else. It's still basically its own separate world, which is a huge contrast to, say, Gemini and Google Slides, which is baked right into the workspace ecosystem.
And this is the big catch. You can make an absolutely stunning presentation inside Mixboard, but you can't export it as an editable PowerPoint or Google Slides file. And what this really shows us is Google's fascinating two-track strategy. You've got Gemini and Slides for when you're starting with text, you give it a document, it builds you a deck, but now Mixboard is their champion for a visual-first workflow where the story starts with the images, not with the bullet points.
So what does this all mean? Let's zoom out. What does the super-fast rise of a tool like Mixboard tell us about where creative work is heading? Is this just a cool experiment, or is it the start of something bigger?
I love this quote because it absolutely nails the shift that's happening. For years and years, being creative was about curation, about finding the perfect photo. Now, it's about generation. It's about crafting the perfect prompt. The skill is shifting away from hunting for things and towards articulating your vision so the AI can build it for you.
Which leaves us with this final big question. Are these all-in-one AI-native platforms like Mixboard the beginning of the end for creative friction? Are we finally getting to a point where we can go from that messy, chaotic idea to a polished, final presentation, all in one seamless flow? For now, that walled garden is still there, but it feels like the walls are getting thinner every single day.